Hello, welcome to Diplomat Talks News. This is our first news. In time for Arirang TV's reshuffle, the opening title for Diplomat Talks has a new look with special effects. In addition to the existing title, the new subtitle Nuri's Day of Diplomacy was added to create a very diplomatic day for the audience in cooperation with the embassies and diplomatic officials. Next news. Our Diplomat Talks host and producer Nuri visited a special place to change her outfit. We'll connect with her now. Nuri, are you there?
네, 저는 지금 서울의 한 한복점 앞에 나와 있습니다.
So you will be wearing hanbok on the show from now on.
네, 그렇습니다. 그럼 지금 들어가서 어떤 한복들이 있는지 한번 보도록 하겠습니다. 들어가시죠. 안녕하세요.
예, 안녕하세요.
The hanbok here are different from the traditional hanbok that normally come to mind when we think of hanbok. They are modern hanbok that have traditional Korean characteristics but can be worn comfortably in our everyday life. 조각보 같은
네,
느낌이죠.
우리나라 이제 전통 조각보가 되게 컬러풀하잖아요. 네, 한복 정장이라고 불리거든요. 그래서
Diplomat Talks has the rare opportunity to meet diplomats from each country, so we are going to use it as a platform to showcase Korea's beauty.
이 안에 입은 거를 또 보시면 재밌게.
Next news. Diplomat Talks is looking for new ways to breathe energy and diversity into the program. We invited a staff member into the studio to hear more. Hello.
안녕하세요.
How are you looking for ways?
지금까지는 저희가 대사님들을 위주로 촬영을 했는데 이번 개편을 맞이해서 외교관 분들이랑 외교 관계자 분들까지 섭외풀을 넓혀가지고 더 새롭고 다양한 이야기를 들어보려고 계획하고 있습니다.
Thank you. Diplomat Talks will continue to promote Korea and its relationship with other countries to the world with the diplomats of each country and lower the barriers people of different cultures have against each other. This has been Diplomat Talks News.
약간 디스코 머리처럼 조금 한복에도 어울리고 너무 또 스타일도 아니고 그냥 조금 따서 회의한다고 좀 낯설잖아요. 그거. 아니면 이런 걸로 커버 좀 하다가 저기 조금 안 부르는 사람 있더라고. 나중에 다 부르고 난 그게 재밌더라고. 그런
의상이 이렇게 두 개가 왔는데요. 둘 중에 하나를 골라서 입을게요. 저의 선택은 1번입니다. 왜 1번을 골랐냐면요. 여기 이렇게 다양한 색깔들이 이 옷에 들어있잖아요.
오늘 주제와 관련이 좀 있어요.
감독님이다. 저는 뭐 달라진 거 없나요? 짜잔. 변신. 디플로mat 토크에 처음 나오시는 국가의 대사님이세요. 누군지 궁금하시죠? 지금 바로 이동을 해보겠습니다. 가시죠. 그 국가를 공개합니다. The person we are meeting today is the ambassador of Singapore.
Singapore is a city-state located on the island of Singapore, at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula. In terms of size, as of 2020, its total land area ranks 192nd in the world, meaning it's only slightly larger than Korea's capital city, Seoul. Despite its small land area, the country is recognized for its phenomenal economic growth.
오,
Hello.
나오신다. Hello. 오,
Welcome to the Singapore Ambassador Residence.
thank you for inviting us.
Good to have you.
Ah, hi.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Come.
Remember we met
Yes.
last February?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you very
for
much.
inviting.
Come.
Yes, that is right. Actually, I attended the 2023 New Year reception that was held in Seoul in February.
I'm very happy to see that everybody is turning up to support our events.
Okay, one more the heart.
I was able to discover diverse ethnicities, foods, and cultures here. So I asked the Singaporeans here if their country was really diverse.
We are a very diverse country. You can see from here, you can see Chinese, Malay, Indian, and also some white people here, so all Singaporean.
Diversity and international workforce brings more maybe creativity, you know, in companies and synergy.
It's normal for us to see someone of a different race on the street. In general, compared to Korea, I think we are definitely more diversified. Yeah.
I'm Ukrainian Singaporean. It's a very welcoming society. It's full of people of different backgrounds, different religions, different ethnicities, and it's a good cultural mix.
I didn't know Singapore was such a diverse country, so I had thought that if I had a chance to interview the ambassador, I would ask him about this topic.
Let's start. Yes.
So at the event he invited us last February,
Yes.
I met a lot of Singaporeans
Yes.
and many of them have various backgrounds.
That's right.
So how did Singapore become such a melting pot of ethnicities, religion and culture that it is today?
Yes. I think the main difference between Singapore and South Korea is that Singapore is an immigrant society. We don't have a very long history. Actually, we only got our independence in 1965. So you have 4,000, 5,000 years of history. So we don't have that. So we call ourselves an immigrant society. So our people come from different parts of the world, like from India. So we have Singaporean Indians, from Malaysia, from Indonesia. So we have Singaporean Malay, and then Chinese. So our ancestors like me, I'm third generation Chinese. So my grandfather came from China to basically have a better life in Singapore. So from the start, we were already a melting pot of different nationalities.
Factional conflicts were frequent in Singapore due to its important geopolitical location. The first uses of its modern name date back to the 13th century, when the region was called Singapura. Then, several ethnic groups, including the Javanese, alternated in control. Later, the region would be coveted by world powers, with the Portuguese and Dutch taking power in the 16th and 17th centuries, respectively. Then, with the British building a trading post in 1819, immigrants from various regions, such as China, Malaysia, and India, started flowing in. People from many different countries and ethnicities flocked to the island after politician and colonial official Thomas Stamford Raffles, known as the founder of modern Singapore, made Singapore a free port. Singapore was a British colony until 1942, when it was occupied by Japan until the end of the Second World War. After the war, it was returned to the British in 1946 and was incorporated into the Malaysian Federation in 1963. Then, conflicts and ideological differences over racial policy led to its secession from Malaysia in August 1965. The same year, it joined the UN, ushering in the era of the Republic of Singapore.
As you mentioned before, it is very different from Korea,
Yeah.
because Koreans often refer to Korea as a mono-ethnic country.
Yes.
However, this perception has been changing recently, but
Yes.
there are arguments that Korea should let in more immigrants, but still
Yeah.
the issue is widely debated.
Korea is aging society. And Korea's fertility rate is also very low. I think if I'm not wrong, you are one of the lowest, or if not the lowest, fertility rate in the world. So if you have, on the one hand, less babies, on the other hand, people living longer but older, then I think it's a challenge for you to sustain your economic activities. So I think there may be no choice. There may be no choice for you to eventually bring in talent from different parts of the world. And you can see that many countries are already starting to do that, including Singapore. But that requires two things. First, your visa regime. Your visa regime needs to be more liberal. Second thing, I think the Korean people need to actually I think they are already very open-minded, but they need to be even more open-minded to accept people who are different from them in a way to start living in Korea, in whatever jobs they are doing. I think these two aspects are very important for Korea so that you can continue to sustain your economic development. And now you are the 10th largest economy in the world. So you have to keep that or even improve on that. And because of that, I think you need to bring in talents. And I think it's not whether you should do it, it's how fast you should do it.
Talks quick facts. Diversity of Singapore. Singapore is a country of diversity with many ethnicities such as Chinese, Malay, and Indian, etc. living together. That is why the country has more than one official language. There are 4 official languages: English, Standard Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. Also, 7 out of 10 people in the nation can speak 2 or more languages.
So how does the fact that there are various cultures living in Singapore affect the country's foreign policy or strategy?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think foreign policy basically starts at home. Foreign policy, you need to seek the support of your own people. If your people don't support your foreign policy, the country will run into trouble. So because we have different races, they are all Singaporeans. So as an immigrant society, what we have been trying to do over the years is to create what we call a Singaporean identity. I think so far we have been quite successful to create a Singaporean identity. And when you do the foreign policy, you must be very clear that their loyalty, regardless of race or religion, the loyalty must be with Singapore. That is something that is work in progress. I think we have done quite well, but we are trying to strengthen it even further so that whatever policies we make, all these races will support Singapore as a nation. I think that is something that is very important for us. So we are trying to do that. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the Singaporean identity. So what kind of efforts are you doing to create those kind of identities?
Yeah, it's not a one-off event. Actually, this is, as I say, is a work in progress. We have been doing it for many, many years. And you know, when new Singaporeans, meaning Singaporeans who were previously from other countries, they apply for citizenship. And when they apply for citizenship, when it is approved, they become Singaporean. There is actually a ceremony. There's actually a ceremony for them to pledge their loyalty and allegiance to Singapore. Yeah, so that ceremony is very important, but it's not one-off. It is not one-off. After the ceremony, I think they have already become Singaporean. They have to continue to be loyal and supportive of the policies that the Singapore government is making, whatever policies, and that includes foreign policy.
So I noticed that there are arguments that the laws in Singapore are somewhat strict in order to maintain the diverse society. So what's your take on this?
We have very strict laws in order to maintain racial and religious harmony. We have that. We have that. And the reason is very simple. Because so far, we have enjoyed racial harmony, religious harmony, by and large, right? People live together in harmony. But if, let's say, a particular race, they go on the social media or they write to the newspapers, they start criticizing another race. That is something that is against the law. Something that is against the law, and we don't allow that. Why? Because if you do that, that could lead to unforeseen circumstances. People may go on the streets and they may riot. And that may create a lot of disharmony. So we don't encourage that.
Were there any voices that were against to the law? to be adopted?
I don't think there are voices in Singapore against those laws. The idea of politics is to make the life of the people better. So I think those strict laws is to help achieve that objective.
And one thing that I noticed at the event in February was the food. Food was very diverse and very unique.
Food is always a main highlight of the receptions that the Singapore embassy in all over the world actually. In Singapore, it's very interesting. When we meet each other on the street, the first thing we ask is not like Americans, how are you and all this. We usually ask, have you eaten today? And what have you eaten today? So food is very important in Singapore. And so many kinds of food, as you can see from that reception. So many people call Singapore a food paradise. Because you can get so many types of delicious food. Whether it is upscale restaurants, more expensive kind of food, especially in the hotels, or hawker food from the hawker center, food center. Yeah, very, very tasty, but priced reasonably. So you have that. And interestingly, hawker culture is inscribed as a UNESCO intangible heritage.
Really?
The interesting thing about hawker culture is that regardless of your race, regardless of your family background, everybody goes to enjoy their food, different kinds of food, whether it is Chinese, whether it is Malay food, whether it is Indian food, in the hawker center. And that is one of the reasons why hawker culture was inscribed as a UNESCO intangible heritage.
I found it very similar to Koreans because we are also very into foods and food cultures.
So in this part, we are very similar.
And we also ask, did you eat or have you eaten?
Yes.
Instead of how are you? So I found it
That's
very
right.
similar.
So we are very similar in that sense. Food is also a big thing for Korea.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So at the event, that was my first time trying Singaporean food, and I was very impressed. And I really like some of the desserts and the food. So I wanted to learn how to make some Singaporean food at the time.
I think you are coming to the right place. You come to the right place. Today we are going to maybe give you a surprise. To introduce that special dish. As I told you, there are many dishes. So this is one dish that actually defines Singapore. This dish basically defines the diversity of Singapore. So
A dish that symbolizes Singapore?
Sure.
I was so curious about what kind of food it would be. Food time! 안녕하세요!
환영합니다. 김민지입니다.
한국 분이십니다. 사모님이 한국 분이십니다, 여러분. So you're now preparing some Singaporean food, right?
Yeah, this dish is very popular in Singapore. And then it's eaten by the many all races back home.
The name of the dish is called rojak.
Rojak?
I think rojak is a Malay name. But what is so special about this dish is that all the good ingredients put together form this dish, a very delicious dish called rojak. And many people describe Singapore's culture as that, meaning all the good things come together and form the Singaporean identity.
So we can put some this special rojak sauce.
Looks very thick.
Yes, it's very thick. We put first
peanut. 맛있겠다.
And then we just mix
and
together.
And then you have to stir it thoroughly.
It's not very easy to...
Yeah, you need to do it.
People are very professional, they do it in the hawker center. But I'm not there.
You need to do it very thoroughly.
Yeah, because the sauce is very thick
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's a
It-
sticky.
It takes time.
Every ingredient should touch the sauce.
Ah.
So this is a rojak.
Rojak.
완성.
Yeah.
We made this. Wow.
So this is a very typical Singaporean snack. So we have this green color with rice. It's called kuesallat.
Kuesallat.
If you ask me why it's a green color, it's because of pandan juice.
Pandan juice.
Yes, because
Pandan leaves
Southeast
from the pandan
Asia.
leaves, which is not available in
Yeah.
Korea. yeah.
And then the below is a glutinous rice. And then I make color with the natural blue pea flour.
Oh, it's very
She made a lot of effort to prepare this.
Oh, it's very beautiful.
And then this brown color with coconut strap here is called kueh kosui. Kueh means snack in Malay. And then this is honeycomb snack. This is actually eaten during Lunar New Year festival.
Looks
This
very
is-
pretty.
yeah, so she learned from my mother. Before we came here, we stayed 5 years in Singapore. Yeah, so she learned a lot from my
Because
mother's
for
cooking.
me, it's not that easy. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I grew up in Korea, so it's this diversity Singapore dish is very adventurous for me, challenging for me.
Yeah.
But I have learned a lot over the years.
And then we can try other dishes. Yeah.
죄송합니다. After we are done filming,
Yeah. We should invite the
yes,
crew.
yes. I will try first.
Yeah, please.
So I should try.
Let's try.
rojak first.
Try the rojak first. It's a unique taste, huh?
진짜 맛있어.
You like it? As I told you, you can't find this anywhere else in Korea.
But I'm sure Korean people love Singaporean
Yeah, they like
food.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like it.
It's very unique
Yeah.
and different, but it's very delicious. 진짜 맛있어.
So in a way, like Singapore, different cultures come together, different races come together, and you form a Singaporean identity.
So I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot, but how did you first meet?
We met in 2006, 17 years ago, when Minjae was sent to Singapore to teach in the National University of Singapore. So she was a language teacher. So she was teaching Korean. I was not her student. Her student at that time was my boss at that time.
Oh.
So my boss at that time was coming to Korea to be the ambassador. So he introduced my wife to me. At that time.
I was a bit surprised. Yeah, because he said he wanted to introduce somebody to me, but I didn't expect that it's the guy because actually I just arrived in Singapore. I want to concentrate on working, but
And you fell in love?
That was history, 17 years ago.
17 years
Yes,
ago.
it
yes,
was
yes.
2006.
Yeah. So we got married in August 2008.
And then we have our first boy in Taiwan.
2010. My girl was born in Beijing. I was born in Singapore originally, and my wife was born in Korea. So in our family, it's very diverse.
Color is really pretty.
Yes, pandan leaves.
If you
So
go to
pandan leaves.
Singapore, they are like bakery, they all sell this.
This tastes really unique as well. Yeah, for Korean.
So actually it was all steam.
These are the
Same,
two
yeah.
more popular snacks. But there are so many types of this kind of kueh in Singapore. So many types. These are only two that we prepared today.
It's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
이따 꼭 드셔보세요.
You should try it later. Your crew should try it later. Yeah.
Because inside have a coconut milk, maybe you can feel a little bit. Because he keeps saying that Singapore is a very multiracial, multi-religious country.
All kinds of food.
So it's also in food because like there is a Malay food, Indian food, and Chinese food.
Yeah. So even culture, food, of course, because of the multiracial nature of our society, there are different kinds of food. I told you about hawker center. You can go to hawker center. There are all kinds of food, including Korean food.
Really?
Yeah. So nowadays there are
Many
so many Koreans.
Oh.
So many Koreans in Singapore, and they even set up the hawker stalls selling Korean food. Yeah. So some people go to hawker center to eat Korean food.
We should have more Singaporean restaurants here in Seoul as well.
Yeah, I think so. We're trying, but it's very competitive environment. So perhaps the best Singaporean food is served in the Singapore residence.
It made me very happy.
So you make my wife very happy. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, for
I
you.
ate everything.
Finish everything. Good job.
Listening to the ambassador's story and eating various Singaporean food, I learned that Singapore is a country where diversity is a strength of various ethnicities and religions. It was a meeting that gave some thoughts on the Korean society.
Also has two feelings.
달콤,
Drink.
달콤 소금.
맛이 되게 특이하죠?
Yes, yes.
For more food.